Be a patriot, support us. Take your Patriot t-shirt. Link in description. Thank you and God bless you and America. It's happening. Trump just came up with genius plan to get Mexico to pay for the wall. This is it, folks. The moment we've all been waiting for. How does Trump pay for the wall? Well, with a little help from a few friends in the US House, it's now known that the wall will be paid for with the exact thing Trump talked about during the campaign. A fee will be placed on all remissions sent to Mexico made by illegals. Oh, and it gets better. The fee won't apply strictly to illegals, but to all immigrants who send money outside of the United States, regardless of the country they're sending the cash to. Sending money to Pakistan? Fee. Saudi Arabia? Fee. Failing states that hate America and communist utopias like Venezuela? Fee. That's right. While Demoncrats poo-pooed Trump's plan for a wall and to make Mexico pay for it as racist, and former President of Mexico Vicente Fox screamed on Twitter, "I am not paying for that fucking wall," there was a plan in the works to make them all eat their words. On Thursday, Republican members of the House introduced a bill to impose a 2% fee on all remittances sent not only to Mexico, but to any other nation as well. That could lead to a hefty sum for a truly great wall. Via the Washington Times, a group of House Republicans on Thursday introduced the first major bill to fund President Trump's border wall, saying the government could collect billions of dollars by imposing a 2% fee on all the money Mexicans and other immigrants send back home. Estimates vary, but remittances from those in the U.S. to their relatives back home could top $130 billion a year. A 2% tax could net more than $2 billion a year if it applied to all money regardless of who's sending it. This bill is simple: anyone who sends their money to countries that benefit from our porous borders and illegal immigration should be responsible for providing some of the funds needed to complete the wall, Representative Mike Rogers, Alabama Republican, said in a statement. This bill keeps money in the American economy, and most importantly, it creates a funding stream to build the wall. Mr. Rogers and Representative Lou Barletta of Pennsylvania are leading the effort. Americans have been reminded time and time again of the danger illegal immigrants pose to their families. From Kate Steinle being murdered in cold blood in the sanctuary city of San Francisco by an illegal who had been deported 5 times, to the more recent case of a drunk driving illegal killing a family in Ohio. We've had enough of the drugs, the rapes, and the murders that illegals bring with them like the plague. It's time to build the wall. And thank God members of the House are putting Trump's plans into action in order to protect all of us. The era of Obama is over, folks. The era of law and order is here. Finally. Share this if you want the wall built, and for Mexico to pay for it. By Jeff Rainforth. Like Jeff on Facebook. Follow Jeff on Twitter. Melania rushes out of female empowerment event after heinous thing that happened to her. One would think that feminists would rally around other women, right? Well, you would think that, but in this topsy-turvy world, you are very wrong. You see, feminists only rally around women who think exactly like them. So, if you happen to have your own thought process, they will shred you faster than you could yell. There is no such thing as patriarchy. That was perfectly depicted yesterday when Melania Trump delivered a beautiful speech at the State Department. The First Lady spoke at the Women of Courage ceremony, encouraging women to be brave and letting them know that they have a voice. Of course, the liberal rag CNN covered the event, and it is clear these fembots were in a conundrum over it. These feminist women wanted to appear tolerant and accepting of Melania since she is a woman, but their hatred for Trump would not allow it. One CNN guest, named Kate Bauer, could not mask her disdain for Melania at all. So, Bauer took the opportunity to bash the First Lady and then praise Michelle Obama. In case you missed it, this is what Kate Bauer had to say. Well, another author said, does she have a low profile? No, she has pretty much no profile at this point, she answered. I think there is a big question mark about what she's going to take on. We just saw that she hired a communications director, which I think could make a big difference for her, but by this point in Michelle Obama's tenure, she had a staff around her. She was very involved. She had graced the covers of magazines and been a real force in Washington, and because Melania Trump doesn't live here, we don't see much of her. Jealousy much, ladies? Seriously, gals, you all need to grow up already. These women were so catty to Melania that they missed what woman empowerment really is. After the event, Melania rushed to take care of her other duties, like being a wife and mother. While the left may demean women who take these roles lightly, Melania does not. And, if these women were truly about empowerment for all women, they would be applauding her and not ripping her to shreds. H.T. Daily Call. Russia just officially ended Obama by publicly exposing his secrets from when he was still in office. So it appears the so-called reset button the Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and then President Barack Hussein Obama touted during the past administration when it came to Russian relations has a lot more to it than anyone could ever have imagined. Actually, not sure how much of that was true, considering most people on the right pretty much knew the world was in for some turbulent times with a wimp like Obama and an opportunistic political whore like Clinton at the helm fundamentally transforming the nation. When asked earlier this week, Moscow's foreign ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova gave a rather long answer as to what exactly was going on during the past administration and how it has affected our relations with Russia, a nation who can very well be, as President Ronald Reagan called it, trust but verify ally. Question: how do you see the future of Russian-U.S. diplomatic relations in the context of the current atmosphere in Washington? Can you confirm that Secretary of State Rex Tillerson will come to Moscow in April? Foreign Ministry spokesperson, Maria Zakharova, Moscow. Apparently, many volumes have been written about the development of Russian-U.S. relations. I announced the release of the Foreign Ministry's year-end diplomatic bulletin and even showed it at the previous briefing. I believe that about 20% of that bulletin was devoted to Russian-U.S. relations, the way we see them, how we want them to develop, what we expect from Washington, what we are willing to do with the United States, the priority areas of cooperation, areas where our cooperation should be revived without delay, and the areas where this can wait, at least for a limited time. This issue has been covered in interviews by Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, comments by Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov, and in numerous statements made at all levels by representatives from various Russian agencies, political analysts and politicians, as well as officials from the legislative and executive authorities. We can talk about bilateral relations with a different degree of mastery, but we would like to start implementing our relationship at long last. We provided our views on bilateral relations and the reasons for blocking them under President Obama. We said that we were willing to work with the new U.S. administration, under President Trump. I don't think we need to invent anything in this respect because so much has been said before. Simply, we should start concrete practical work. We are ready for this. You know that we always invite our American colleagues and diplomats to join bilateral or multilateral dialogues on issues in which the United States has traditionally played a big unactive role, such as Syria, the consultations in Astana, and many others. We expect Washington to formulate its foreign policy approaches in the form of a concept. We are ready for pragmatic and specific work on the principles that we have described many times. As for the visit by U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson and the information about it, this is what I can say. It's not a secret that preparations for any visit include the coordination of the time when it can be announced. Visits by foreign ministers are public events that are never kept secret. At least, I don't know about any secret visits by foreign ministers in Russia or the United States. Preparations for such a visit also include the coordination of the format, agenda, and the date it can be announced to the public. It is a matter of propriety and respect for each other's interests. One side proposes a date, and the other side is expected to accept it. This date should be acceptable to both sides, because the foreign ministers have packed schedules. The issue also concerns the coordination of the agenda by experts. One side informs the other side of the issues it plans to discuss, and the other side needs to respond that the agenda is acceptable. In other words, the sides need to reach agreements on many issues, after which they can announce an upcoming visit. This is how we work with our colleagues. To tell the truth, over the past few years we've seen many strange things happen in Washington in connection with preparations for visits or talks by our foreign ministers. The U.S. Department of State has more than once asked us not to announce planned visits until the last minute. This is not our tradition. We have been operating openly for years, but we have respected the requests we have received from our colleagues in Washington in the past few years. But what happened after that? First, the U.S. Department of State asked us to keep the planned visit quiet and not to announce it until the last possible minute, until we coordinated the date. We did as they asked. But a day or two later the information was leaked by the U.S. State Department and sometimes by the U.S. administration. Frankly, this put Russia and the media in a strange situation, because they didn't know who to believe, the official agencies or the many leaks. It is difficult to say if this diplomatic communication is a U.S. tradition or the latest technique. But it definitely doesn't correspond to our traditions. We believe that everything we coordinate should be made available to the media in accordance with diplomatic procedure. When we coordinate a visit and the date for announcing it, the information should be made public calmly and as agreed. This is what we do in relations with our colleagues from other countries. As I said, such cases in our relations with the U.S. Department of State have become a bad tradition over the past few years. So, I can say in response to your question that we will make the date and format of contracts between the Russian and U.S. foreign ministers public after we coordinate them. We won't keep them quiet. At this point, I don't have any information I can share with you. I can say that this visit and such contacts are possible in principle, but it would be premature to talk about timeframes. Also, I would like to say that if the practice of leaking information that concerns not just the United States but also Russia, which has become a tradition in Washington in the past few years, continues, there will come a day when the media will publish leaks about the things that Washington asked us to keep secret, for example, things that happened during President Obama's terms in office. Believe me, this could be very interesting information. If everything she said in her statement is indeed true, which I tend to believe it is, it seems the Obama administration was actively trying to get into a Cold War with Russia or at the very least to not have any relations with them at all. It's mind-boggling as to why the US wouldn't want to have an ally as strong as Russia by its side. But then again, maybe not. Russia and Putin are the major obstacles to billionaire, and all-around scumbag, George Soros and his plan for a one-world government, otherwise known as NWO. Let's not forget Obama, a nobody who never stood out in anything, burst onto the scene in 2004 because of a well-delivered speech he gave at the 2004 Democratic Convention in Fleet Center in Boston, Massachusetts. This is what we get when we elect a person because of their skin color or their plumbing, instead of the content of their character. Elections have consequences. Barron's big plans for the White House just announced and liberals are losing their minds. The first son to live in the White House since President John F. Kennedy Jr. is preparing to make his much-anticipated move in just a few short weeks from now once his school year in New York comes to an end. With his relocation for at least the next 4 years, comes an announcement this weekend of his big plans for what he's going to do in the People's House that has liberals losing their minds. Barron broke the long-standing tradition of first daughters and is now doing something else new in Washington, D.C. He's returning to the White House for the first time in a long time, before he makes the official summer move, and is bringing a few new people with him as part of his plan. Melania has proved that one of the most important things to her as a mother and first lady is to maintain a sense of normalcy for Barron. The boy recently turned 11 and didn't have a big birthday bash, delaying the celebration until his reunion with his family in the nation's capital with a few friends along for the fun and a White House sleepover. Poll Hype reports, according to Trump insiders, Donald's youngest son has been waiting in anticipation for the move. He's been eagerly asking if his friends can visit and innocently said to his mom, "I hope there are bedrooms for my friends to come visit." What's going to make this small party fun for the first son and a few of his friends from Columbia Grammar School, is that they will get to enjoy all that the White House has to offer for kids, including a basement bowling alley, basketball court, tennis court, and a swimming pool, according to the New York Daily News. This is pretty special for Barron, who has to endure endless criticism from liberal lunatics who have no qualms about berating a young boy. Leftists often accuse him of being entitled and a spoiled brat, and this birthday advantage probably just adds to that inaccurate accusation. However, despite his family's wealth, his parents have raised him with wholesome values, and he has a mother who is very much involved in his life, puts him first, and does everything she can to ensure a solid